Members of the public may address the board on any item within the jurisdiction of the board by submitting presentation requests from such time. Members of the public are strongly urged not to mention personnel by name and are reminded that they do not have immunity from legal action and personnel liability. The board may limit each speaker to 3 minutes for a total of 20 minutes per talk. People wishing to speak on an item that unfortunately will be called upon when that item is considered. People wishing to speak on items that are not on the public agenda will be called upon at this time. Since the board generally cannot take action on items not on the agenda, such items will be referred to this clerk of the meeting. And we have one family member.
Good evening. I'm addressing the board tonight. Something happened to my daughter on the 30th of October. She was knocked down by another student and then punched in the sides. I went to the principal, and the principal deemed it as horseplay, which I don't believe that would be considered horseplay, nor do I believe the appropriate action for taking against that student, considering that, from what I have been told, it was not the student's first time doing this to another student. And it did happen during PE. The lack of the teacher paying attention to what was going on. When my daughter told the teacher, she did nothing. I said, and then I went to the principal, and I don't believe that anything was truly done about it besides it was called horseplay.
What school site?
Here at Rosemont Elementary.
Did you fill out a complaint in addition to bringing it to the board?
No, I have not. Where would I pull that out at?
At the school site?
The school website?
No, come to the school site here, get a formal complaint that you can file with the principal.
Okay. Thank you.
Student board member report, Joanna.
Tropical Middle School ASD is continuing to sell while time is talking. We will end on November 30th. Science Bowl will sell Japanese fishes and raise 100 pounds. Students can still join the club. 6th graders are needed. Marching band and flag team went to competition. The band took 6th place and flag team took 5th. ASB is planning to do a talent show in December. Last week we had red ribbons. We had different colors and awareness days for every day. On Monday, pink. On Tuesday, purple. Wednesday, blue. Thursday, yellow. And Friday, red. We also had a door prize contest on one or more of the days. And we decorated our doors. Mrs. Champali's class won ideas of life. Cross country had their class tournament. Boys basketball tryouts are coming up next week, and girls tryouts are the weekend of the year. Yankee Candle fundraiser ended on November 2nd. This fundraiser is for camp to help the kids go into camp raise money to lower the costs of camp. With this fundraiser, the school earned 40% of the money made. On Halloween, the theme was Harry Potter. It was nice to see the office staff dress up. They dressed as wizards. Yearbook made posters in the front office saying, "As home, we swear I am bringing up in here." Yearbook wanted and used posters about Harry Potter.
Next we have Mr. Rosemont Elementary School.
welcome everyone to Rose Elementary Board of Education, Ms. Leanne, Hargus. Thank you all for being here for our showcase. This is my first year as principal here at Rose Elementary. As principal, Mr. Gonzalez is my right-hand man. This is his first year here at the elementary level as well. And we're both our first year at the actual elementary together here on this site. So we appreciate you guys having here tonight. Part of Rosemont Elementary, what we wanted to do when we came aboard here was establish relationships right from the get-go. In March of last year, I myself and Mr. Adams attended a training for Capturing Kids' Hearts. For us, it was very impactful, just on with our students' relationships, but also our teachers and our staff that went on campus. And with the foundation of anything that you start with the foundation of relationships. We all remember when you're asked what teachers impacted me the most, it's usually not they taught me how to do science or math and stuff like that. It's usually they've shown kindness or respect, those kinds of things, attributes that we as human beings capture ourselves, get a hold of those things. So our presentation tonight will be on capturing kids' hearts here at Rosemont Elementary. And one of the sayings is the Flipping Group is the group that hosted the Capturing Kids' Hearts. So we're going to have a flipping good time. So for the questions that I posed in a social contract, I posed this to our teachers, is the 4 questions to build a social contract whenever you're in a large group is something kind of to abide by. I think when you guys are in a group setting, these are adjectives that describe how you're going to interact with each other. So the 4 questions that I asked our staff to go by is, how do you want to be treated by a teacher or leader? And this is going to go for the students as well too, because some teachers did attend a training as well, and so they have social contracts that are in their classrooms. The second question was, how do you want to be treated by each other? So when you're interacting with each other, how do you want to be treated? The third question that was posed is, how do you think the teacher or leader wants to be treated by you? And the fourth one was, how do we want to treat each other when there's conflict? Because there's always going to be conflict. It's just a matter of how you can deal with it together with your leader and each other. Depends on the outcome of things. So when I posed this 4 question, I sent it out in a Google survey to our teachers, and they filled out in a grade level setting, came up with at least 5 words for each question. And so from those 5 words for each question, we were able to build in our school contract. So this is a contract based on those responses from the teachers, and so for us, this is going to be something that we do school-wide, not just for our staff, not just for our kids, but also with our community. I think we all have a relationship where we have to go back and forth with that. So in our school, we will be respectful, be kind, listen attentively, be fair, be honest, be polite, compromise, find solutions, discuss issues, be consistent, be understanding, be appreciative, be accommodating, be patient, be open-minded, be just, be calm, be timely, be friendly, be courteous, be encouraging, have good humor, be caring, be attentive, be tolerant, be accountable, be helpful, be humble, be apologetic, and be positive. So out of all the questionnaires that we went through for grade level study, this is a contract we came up with that we will abide by when we have conflict relationships and stuff like that. We can abide by this here and work together to solve those conflicts. So these are just some classroom examples of some contracts that are taking place with teachers that have gone through the Capturing Kids' Hearts. So what they do is, as a group, the same 4 questions are posed to the class, and the students actually come up with these things here, and they all have to agree on what they're going to abide by in that contract. And once the whole class has 100% buy-in, then they sign their name to it. And so every morning, most teachers that have done this will present this contract to the class before they even start. And so this is the thing that they're going to follow when they get into conflict of how they be respecting each other's stuff. And so part of Capturing Kids' Hearts, it goes into an Excel model. An Excel model breaks down to engage, explore, communication, empower, and lunch. So the two things that we want, well, the one thing we want to focus on this year was engage. And with engage, this is the first step that is essential to the success of every day. It begins with the greeting of students at the door or in the classroom with handshake, high five, or hug at the beginning of each class period. So in the mornings here at our school, you'll notice a lot of our teachers, either on the blacktop or by the classrooms, will greet their students before they even make it into the classroom. Also something important that we put into place below too is tell me something good. So each student who volunteers gets to share something good. Usually you want to keep it to 2 to 5 students to share. If you have your whole class share one morning, it's going to take up like 30, 40 minutes of the day. So what you want to do is you want to divide that every day. And it's voluntary because you don't want to build anxiety in kids. You don't want to call on somebody that's not ready to share something positive about the day. So you want to make sure it's voluntary. So those are the 2 things that we wanted to employ is the greeting and the tell me something good this year, because that in itself is part of the biggest engagement that a child will have before they even step on to campus or even in the classroom. The other part is, like I said, by doing these 2 things, you draw students into relationships with each other, and you build, you progress in your classroom. So some of the teachers picked speakers, so I had them email me some of their testimonials. And so I'd like to go through several of those. So Mrs. Lloyd is one of our first grade teachers, and she states that the good mornings put a smile on their faces, especially after I say eyes, making sure that they make eye contact. Lets them stop to enjoy the greeting. Right now, my class has started writing books to read to each other after lunch. It started with 1, and now I have many. So just those small acts have built relationships, not with the teacher, but within each other. And that's impactful because sometimes you can't get kids to be around each other and to write books for each other. And that's impactful in the classroom, especially to watch a teacher have her students interact with each other is very powerful. Another one, Mrs. Wiggins. Miss Wiggins, she is our TK teacher, and she states that as students line up on the classroom outside wall to give the classroom instructions for once they enter the classroom, I then get on a knee by the classroom door and greet every student in line with a good morning, and then she gives the student's name and a clap. This greeting is a great opportunity for me to let the students know I am with them in the learning process that sometimes seems very difficult. It also allows me to explain students, examine students for harm or accidents that may have happened prior to school or the night before. I also am able to read my students' moods and attitudes. This morning, greetings seem to put a smile on even the saddest of students' faces. Once they are eye to eye with me, for a brief moment, students feel it is just them and I, which makes them feel special. This is very impactful because there's a lot of students that we get on campus that never get a hug, a handshake, or even a hello before they leave home. And so when they're dropped off and rushed to school, their mind is already set to where I'm probably not have a good day. So to have a teacher spend 2 seconds eye-to-eye contact, smile at them is very impactful. And that child, that moment, might change the trajectory of their entire day. So I actually copied that over to Ms. Spitzer. She's a second grade teacher. She's one of my grade level leads for 3rd grade, and I wanted to take her statement of testimony because I think it's very impactful. And I think she wrote me today that what I'm going to read to you guys, the entire 2nd grade teachers are going to start doing this every morning now. So the students have 6 options that they can choose from each morning for how they want to be greeted: a hug, high five, a fist bump, an elbow below, handshake, or a quick dance. These choices are posted on my door, and as the kids come in, they pick the one they want, and then they do it together. My students are big huggers, and many of them hug me throughout the day, so I wasn't surprised that they chose the hug greeting. What did surprise me was the fact that many who had never hugged me before, and who I have certain would choose fist bump or dancing, consistently chose hug. It was as if they needed an invitation to give her a hug. I've also noticed that on Monday mornings, almost all my kids chose a hug, as though they haven't had one since Friday. That was such a simple, free activity that I thought would be fun, and it is, but I had to realize that it would make such an impact on both my students and myself. It has deepened the sense of community in our classroom, and it has made me more aware of what some of my students may need. And as of tomorrow, our whole second grade team will be using the resource of greeting all our students today in invitation away. And it is true, some kids need adults to say, no, it's okay to hug me, it's okay to get a hug, it's okay to give you a high five, whatever it is. So to do this and think that a child has gone since Friday with no physical contact at any point or no greeting or anything, to come Monday morning and want that hug, that's going to be impactful, not just for that day, but the relationship with the teacher at all times. So some of the morning greetings that I was able to catch, so we have Anderson, fourth grade teacher, her kids line up and either give her hugs, high fives, whatever that might be. And know that some students will hesitate to do any physical contact at that point. And so what our teachers do is they don't initiate it. So if a child doesn't want to give you a high five or a handshake or a hug, they're more than welcome still to come into class and they're not felt to be negative about it. And then we have Ms. Feinstein, which is one of our fourth grade teachers again too. They do toe taps in the morning. So before they come into class, they each tap each other's toe and they get it started. And Ms. Ortiz, which is one of her fifth grade teachers, she also does the same, some greetings, some fist bumps, some elbow shakes, it just depending on what that student needs at that time. So that is our showcase for our school. We're building relationships, we're setting a foundation for not just adults and kids, but our community, so that way we know how to operate with each other. Because there's a lot of give and take, you got to know how to operate with each other so we can be at a common ground. And that is it for us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate your attendance. It's always wonderful to see a full house. So, especially all the young high school kids that just came in. Hopefully it's not just your ASB assignment and you're here for other reasons.
Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you for the presentation. That was really good. I still keep in touch with two of my teachers from high school. They were very inspiring to me, and like I said, to this day, I still keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming in. I did appreciate that presentation as well. I just want to get that information as well with the students and maybe to open up a mindset, positive guidance around it. I like that, that option. And it's working for your school. I also just want to thank the Rockin' News that you have on your website, the Wildcat School that you design, and the Roadrunner Report. I've been reading up on it, and I really appreciate that. Because it lets us know exactly what, your campus is doing. How you like that. I really appreciate that. Next we have.
I feel like I'm walking across the room away from you, which you might appreciate. Good evening. First of all, I want to congratulate all of the candidates for the board. Whether you were elected or not, your interest in representing the community and serving our students deserves our appreciation. So I appreciate all the candidates that have that rank. But now I'm confused, which is typical. I was told yesterday that item 10C on the agenda was going to be tabled for tonight. That's the ratification or the board vote on the tentative agreement between contract language changes between RTA and the association. But then the board approved the agenda. So is this item tabled or are you voting on it tonight?
But we have to approve the agenda as written. Or if there's any changes to the agenda itself, when the vote comes up, that's when we look at it.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. So now I can start my rant. So with that, obviously with that item being tabled, I continue to be just beside myself with frustration that we can't get this item done. I was told recently that the reason the tentative agreement was being withheld had to do with one particular item on the tentative agreement. And I had withdrawn that item back in the summer. So now I then filled out a memo and formally withdrew the item to make sure that we got that out of the tentative agreement, that was the one thing that was, holding the board back or holding the district back from putting that on the board agenda for a vote. But then yesterday I find out that there's now another item in the tentative agreement that has been denied by the county, and therefore the district has recommended, I guess, that it be tabled for a board vote. This is an item that's been in place for 10 years and doesn't cost the district any more money. But clearly what I am seeing is a complete lack of understanding, experience, and communication between the county, the district, the board, and RTA to get this done. And I don't get it. I have served this district for 26 years as a teacher and more than 20 years as RTA president, and I think the district and the board would recognize that everything RTA has done under my leadership has been for the benefit of the students and with both the needs of the teachers and the district in mind. So it is extremely disappointing that once again, this item is not going to be brought to the board before a vote. And we continue to violate the Equal Employment Relations Act by not having this voted on. What's going to be next? Is there going to be another item that keeps the board from voting on this? Until this tentative agreement gets taken care of, and until we're done with this, there will be no negotiations into the future. And I know the district needs us to look at things going down the road. So I hope and urge that the district and the board and the county can find a way to get this tentative agreement on the agenda for a vote and that the board approves it sometime soon. Thank you very much.
We have a CSC. No?
After that, we'd like to stand up and say hello.
Next we have our
So I'd just like to take a moment to recognize the tragic passing last week of our ground supervisor, Hector Villavicencio. It came out of nowhere. Hector was one of the first people to really embrace me when I joined the district. I'll very much miss Hector. He was a selfless person. He was always there whenever you needed him. He'll be missed by us, by the community, by the facilities department especially. So I just want to take a moment to recognize what Hector has been for this district over the last 21 years. We will never be able to replace Hector. We hope to acknowledge what he meant for this district by some way or some form. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have the superintendent.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming, and thank you, Mr. Mesa, for all that you're doing here at West Elementary, and Mr. Gonzalez, capturing kids' hearts and, really affecting those students each and every day.
I would make a motion that we approve the items from A to F.
Before we move with consent, I have two questions for Mr. Avanesian or Ms. Hargus. Item D, asset acquisition, 632 miscellaneous non-textbooks, and item F, human scale Liberty office chair. So the first one, it appears as though we just didn't have something in place to properly store these books that we invested in some time back, and and now they have mold damage.
These were in a C train,
Okay.
but somehow, some way, the C train, cats got into the C train. And these books are just.
Urinated on. Is that
Right.
all right? So we attempted to
We investigated
Take it.
it, yeah. But just being in the C train is not.
Okay, so is there perhaps something that we're going to look into that would help us store our assets that would prevent them from
Yeah.
obtaining damage?
So basically, the C train, it was not even being really used. No one really went in there. For the most part, we don't purchase textbooks or novels or paperbacks any longer. We use Overdrive to purchase books digitally. But generally, I think it's one of those cases where these books we have, no one was really aware about it, and it was just sitting in the C train. Not until someone poked them in there, they realized what kind of damage was done to the C train. But, generally, it's not really a practice to put books or textbooks into C trains and just forget about it.
Okay, good. And then the second one, which is to me a little bit more disturbing, Human Scale Liberty office chair. It appears as though we just let this go with a former employee, and we're not going to do anything to attempt to retrieve it.
So this chair was purchased for this specific employee for an injury they suffered while at work. It was designed for them. The measurements were taken for that employee for this chair. Some previous agreement that they had with previous administrations was once an employee left our employment, that the chair would go with them. That is the case with this chair.
Okay, so was there some sort of liability that the district was under because of this previous employee's condition that we had to buy them that chair?
Yeah, it was a medical necessity. We had to buy that chair.
All right. Workman's comp issue? Okay, so we're not really dispositioning anything that was purchased for them and that was their property.
Right, it's the district's property. We purchased it, but we only purchased it because medically we were required to.
There's no way we could use this for anyone else.
I don't know. I've never actually seen the chair personally, but it's just something that came to our attention recently, so we had to put it on the agenda for this position.
Okay, well, we should probably not allow that to be a practice going forward.
Personally, no, I would not have it as a practice. But this was an agreement that was between the employee and the administration years ago. That at this point, I feel we should honor, only because this is what was agreed upon. The understanding for years, even though it wasn't passed, the information wasn't shared with whoever came into the position, or it caught me by surprise, to be honest. Once I learned about the situation, we did not reject it for this purpose.
Okay, well, I mean, that practice there itself opens up a whole other ball of wax. If we're going to allow people to come up to us and just say, well, this is what was told to me in the past, so I think you need to honor it.
Right. So it's not something that generally we would accept, just word of mouth. But in this situation, there is the workers' comp history of it, so there is something there that we can refer to that says we were required to purchase this chair for this person.
Okay, thank you.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Elements 1-1.
California School Dashboard Level Performance Indicators. So, let me show you the website. Okay, this is the California School Dashboard. So this is like a report card for a school district or a school. This is the dashboard for Southern Kern. And what's on it, first are state indicators. This is data collected by the state about the school district. And the data includes the following categories: chronic absenteeism, suspension rate, English learner in progress, graduation rate, college and career readiness, English language, arts, and mathematics. What we're going to talk about tonight are the local indicators. The local indicators, this is data that's not collected by the state. This is data that we collect ourselves and do a self-assessment on. So as part of that process, as part of that process, we present the local indicators at a board meeting. So the local indicators are for the local control funding formula priorities where data is not collected at the state level, and LEA, the district, will measure and report its progress through the dashboard based on locally collected data. So local indicators include the following priorities. Priority 1, which are basic conditions at school. Priority 2, which is implementation of state academic standards. Priority 3, parent engagement. Priority 6, which is the local climate, which we measure through a local climate survey. And then priority 7, which is access to a broad course of study. So here's our data for priority 1. During the 2017-2018 school year, 32% of teachers were not fully credentialed or they were disassigned. And as of October 2018, the district had 1 vacant teacher position. The number or percentage of students without access to their own copies of standards aligned instructional materials for use at school and at home was 0. The number of identified instances where facilities do not meet the good repair standard, including deficiencies and extreme deficiencies, was 0. Priority 2. This is a self-reflection tool for the implementation of state academic standards. So we're going to go through Priority 3 is seeking input from parents or guardians in school and district decision making and promoting parental participation in programs. So in May of 2018, we administered a parent survey, the LCAT parent survey. 130 TK through 12th grade parents responded. For question 8 of the survey was, my child's school welcomes my ideas about how to improve. The mean scores, okay, so the scale was 1 is strongly agree, 2 is agree, 3 is neutral, 4 is disagree, and 5 is strongly disagree. So for kindergarten through 5th grade, the score is 2.5, which is between agree and neutral. Again, it's my child's school welcomes my ideas about how to improve. For grades 6 through 8, the mean score was 3.2, which is between neutral and disagree, which is close to neutral. And for grades 9 through 12, the score was 2.3, which is between agree and neutral, close to agree. Question 7. My child's school sees parents as important partners in my child's education. For kindergarten through 5th grade, the average score was 2, we agree. For grades 6 through 8, the average score was 2.88, which is close to neutral. And for grades 9 through 12, the average score was 2.3, which is close to agree. For priority 6, that's the school climate. We administer the California Healthy Kids survey to students in grades 7, 9, and 11. And that survey is administered around November last year. So the sample size was, for 7th grade we had 234 respondents, 9th grade we had 179 respondents, and 11th grade we had 146 respondents. So one question is perceived safety at school. What percentage of students feel safe or very safe at school? For 7th grade, 59.5% of students feel safe or very safe at school. For 9th grade, 50%, and for 11th grade, 46%. And if you break that down by ethnicity, for Hispanic students, in grade 7, 65% feel safe or very safe. In 9th grade, 52%, and in 11th grade, 50%. For African American students, 7th grade, 64% feel safe or very safe. In 9th grade, 36%, and 11th grade, just 14%. And for white students in grade 7, 52%, grade 9, 52%, and 11th grade, 56%. Happy to be at this school. The percentage of students responding very much true, or pretty much true. Grade 7, 52%, grade 9, 52%, grade 11, 40%. Based on, so the district looks at this data, and it's part of the data, a lot of data that we look at. And as a result of our most recent Caltrain Kids Hearts, California Healthy Kids survey data, SKUSD has implemented the Caltrain Kids Hearts program district-wide, which we saw during Mr. Mesa's presentation, for the 2018-2019 school year. Teachers and administrators learn strategies to build more meaningful engagement with students, including a series of activities to launch the school year. This research-based program is helping us to improve our school climate and help students to feel safer and more connected to their schools. Priority 7, access to a broad course of study for grades 1 through 6. All students have access to Common Core curriculum for math and ELA, as well as supplemental materials to support the curriculum, including a reading intervention program. Students are enrolled in social studies classes that follow the California History Social Science framework. Students study science, and the district is in the process of implementing the NGSS standards. Individual teachers address the visual and performing arts standards within their own classrooms. Individual teachers address the health standards within their own classrooms. Students in grades K through 5 have 80 minutes of PE instruction per week with a PE teacher, as well as PE opportunities as determined by the classroom teacher. There are no differences across school sites or student groups. Students with disabilities are engaged in the same curriculum as the general education students. For grades 7 through 12, at Southern Kern Unified, students in grades 7 through 12 may attend Tropical Middle School, Roseman High School Early College Campus, Rare Earth Continuation High School for grades 9 through 12, and Abraham Lincoln Independent Study for grades 7 through 12. Students at Roseman High School have access to a full course of study, including 8 CTE pathways. Students at Tropical Middle School have access to a full course of study, including 3 full-time PE coaches, Spanish, art, and band. Students with disabilities take the same curriculum as the general education students. Students at Rare Earth have access to a full course of study by taking classes at Roseman High School. Abraham Lincoln students take a full range of courses in the core curriculum, ELA, Math, Science, and Social Studies. Abe Lincoln and Rare Earth students can take lab science classes at Roseman High School. They can also take classes in visual arts and PE. Rare Earth and Abraham Lincoln students can take electives online or Roseman High School. Are there any questions or comments about any of that? So I had technical difficulties showing one page on the website. Give me a couple of minutes, I can pull that up. Is there other business to care of? Or we can do pulling that page up? Sure. Okay.
Second item, we have adopting the Kern educational pledge supported by Kern public education leaders. Ms. Hargus?
This is a presentation as well, not so we need to wait.
What about the resolution?
That's a resolution that we adopt every 2 years. And it just says that we will follow, all of the rules, making sure that they're.
Motion to accept the biannual adoption of the public interest. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One absent,
One student.
one student. Approved board policy exhibit 5144.1. Ms. Hargus?
So what that is, it's called stipulated expulsion, and so it goes along with some of the, with one of the new board policies that, well, actually it's not new, but it's in our first reading. So it's for a stipulated expulsion, and what that means is students that commit a something that would go for the board and would probably lead to an immediate expulsion. Parents can opt to, take the immediate expulsion and waive their opportunity to go before the board. This would only be offered for, a weapons offense or something that would be really egregious, that would obviously be an immediate expulsion. It would not be offered to everybody. Parents have the option as to if they would take it or not. They could look at it, they could read it, they could say, we would like to take our chances before the board, so they could waive that. Or they could take this and move on and find another educational resource for their students. And it's an exhibit that goes along with our board policies. This is the first reading for numerous policies, and it is found under the suspension and expulsions. So if you want to take a look at those, that is an exhibit that goes with that board policy. It's listed 5144.1.
I'll second.
All in favor? One absent. Student?
Student votes yes.
Have you read it then?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's fine.
So for priority 2, it's a self-reflection for the implementation of state academic standards. Number 1, rate the local educational agency's progress in providing professional learning for teaching to the recently adopted academic standards and/or curriculum frameworks identified below. Rating scale goes from lowest to highest, 1 being exploration and research phase, 2 being beginning development, 3 initial implementation, 4 full implementation, 5 full implementation and sustainability. English language arts Common Core state standards for English language arts, 4. English language development aligned to English language arts standards, 4. Mathematics Common Core state standards for mathematics, 4. Next generation science standards, 4. History, social science, 2. Rate the local educational agency's progress in making instructional materials that are aligned to the recently adopted academic standards and/or curriculum frameworks identified below, available in all classrooms where the subject is taught. Rating scale lowest to highest, the same rating scale as before. English language arts, Common Core state standards for English language arts, 5. English language development, 4. Mathematics, 5. Next generation science standards, 3. History, social science, 3. Rate the local educational agency's progress in implementing policies or programs to support staff in identifying areas where they can improve and delivering instruction aligned to the recently adopted academic standards and/or curriculum frameworks identified below. For example, collaborative time, focused classroom walkthroughs, teacher-parent, simulated skill. English language arts 4, English language development 3, mathematics 4, next generation science standards 3, history social science 2. Other adopted academic standards. Rate the local educational agency's progress in implementing each of the following academic standards adopted by the State Board of Education for all students. Career technical education 5, health education content standards 3, physical education model content standards 4, visual and performing arts 3, world language 3. Support for teachers and administrators during the 16-17 school year or during the 17-18 school year. Rate the local educational agency's success in engaging in the following activities with teachers and school administrators. Identifying the professional learning needs of groups of teachers or staff as a whole. 4, identifying the professional learning needs of individual teachers. 3, providing support for teachers on the standards they have not yet mastered. 3. Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
You said this was like
Yes.
so how do you come up with
The administration met and reviewed the determination.
then did you inquire your teachers or anything about how they felt they were supported?
We inquired in some areas. I sent out a form to a number of teachers to elicit feedback.
Next we have Ms. Hargus, for educational purposes. Good evening. So this is a PowerPoint that was shared with all of the superintendents of the Kern County. There's 47 school districts, so we're kind of broken up into 2 different groups, but this was shared with us at our meeting last month, so I thought I would share with you. This is about the all of the districts in the county working together. Partnership, Kern County Foundation, the Kern K-16 Education Partnership determined that we needed to formalize our relationships with each other and expand our relationship in order to accelerate and improve outcomes for students and families that we serve. And it was determined that formalization could be captured in the form of a pledge that is more than a promise, instead of a pledge that is formalized agreement that describes how we might work together to improve and accelerate outcomes for students. So our students need and deserve the skills and knowledge necessary to earn a post-secondary certificate credit or college degree in the employment. Collectively, we have made great progress educating our youth and young adults, but achievement gaps do still exist. Improving student outcomes at scale requires innovative and sustained collaboration across institutions to achieve significant lasting change. The creation of the Kern Pledge stems from a shared belief that no single program or institution can single-handedly solve the complex, large-scale education and workforce readiness challenges that face our community. And we believe this because we're in the business to do this very thing. We're sure that our students and parents would definitely agree with us. It's true, it doesn't matter if we're elementary, high school, college. We all need to work together, and definitely, more heads together are better than one by itself. It's becoming more apparent to all of us that our solutions need to be addressed across all levels of educational institutions. It's no longer possible for us to work in isolation and simply pass students on to the next level. So, and here are the goals of the pledge. All the way from early childhood kindergarten readiness, children entering school ready to learn. Elementary school, third grade literacy, children must read at grade level by the end of third grade. Fifth grade math proficiency, children demonstrate core math proficiencies by the end of fifth grade. Middle school, eighth grade literacy and math proficiency, students demonstrating reading and math proficiency by the end of eighth grade. High school, college and career readiness, high school graduates ready to succeed, and then post-secondary education, students enrolling in complete post-secondary program and enter the workforce as skilled. And how we work together. So our collective impact, we have a common agenda. Members of the current education board have and will continue to identify goals across key grade levels through employment. Shared measurements, members of the current education board will track student progress on identified goals. Mutually reinforcing activities, members of the current education board will participate in mutually reinforcing activities to maximize and accelerate goal attainment. Continuous communication, members of the current education board will build trust and relationships among participants by communicating regularly and providing clarity on vision, direction, and goal attainment. Backroom support, members of the current education board are dedicated to providing backroom support that orchestrates the work of the pledge and is sustainable over time. And who are the members of the pledge? So it kind of started with 6 big groups. It was Emma wanted to step. So Kristen Gill, CEO, president of the Kern County Foundation, started that, brought it to Kern County, represented by Dr. Rob Hargus. And in 2018, we formed Kern K-16 partnership adopted. And so they called themselves the Big Six before they, and really firmed the work, put it together before they brought it out to everybody else. But so the Big Six were Mary Barlow, Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Tom Burke, the Chancellor of Kern Community College District, Doc Urban, Superintendent of Bakersfield City School District, Byron Cheever, Superintendent of Kern School District, Dr. Kim Silverberg, Superintendent in Panama Buena Vista, and Lynette Zelensky, who is the president of California State University of Bakersfield. And so we actually got to meet Lynette Zelensky was at our meeting along with the chancellor from the Kern County College Community District. And, they came together to share their vision of building that work with everybody. So kindergarten readiness work group, the group status, and kindergarten readiness assessment, TK, in the Bakersfield City School District and Panama Buena Vista. Future efforts expanding across to interested elementary schools within Kern County. The post-secondary readiness group is identifying indicators of success, A to G completion, high school GPA, fourth year of college prep English and math, and the number of college credits earned upon high school completion. So some of the future efforts will be identifying additional indicators that measure the skills and knowledge entering the workforce. And there's some more post-secondary completion review, some more work that they're doing. Whenever students are successfully completing units, 30 units within our first year of post-secondary enrollment, the number of students that declare a major within 45 units, the number of students that can declare a major within 15 units of post-secondary enrollment at a community college versus a four-year university with 45. The number of students that complete college level math and English courses within their first year. The number of students employed with their steady or pursuing a graduate degree. The number of students obtaining a license or credential certification within their field. And so here are the priorities. Data sharing, and this is with all, we are hoping that all big pledge, I'm actually on the backside that shows, you know, a little space for everybody, 47 districts, superintendent, so this is the hope that we'll have everybody together, share the data, share the best practices. So in data sharing, the power of collective data will help us better understand the needs of our schools, colleges, and universities. Effective data analysis will help us direct preemptive interventions and improve student and adult outcomes. Literacy and reading regarding the third grade is the most crucial indicator of whether a child will graduate from high school and reach gainful employment. Chronic absenteeism, and that's something that we face here at Center for. We deal with a lot of students that are absent. Chronic absenteeism is defined as being absent for any reason more than 10% of the school year. That equates to just 2 days every month or 18 days over the school year. So it doesn't really seem like a lot, but I think we all know that students miss that direct instruction and that education. It really impacts them and their ability to be successful. Research shows that chronic absenteeism can translate into third graders unable to master reading, sixth graders failing courses, and ninth graders dropping out of high school. So the goal of the data warehouse is to provide Kern County education agencies the ability to use data more effectively. And we're always, looking for ways to use our data more effectively to really impact student achievement. In order to initiate group interventions for students that are professional development needs across the county, and that policy practices can be replicated and strengthened in an effort to increase student outcomes. And so these school districts already are a part of that data warehouse pilot. So we're asking, so they came, for all the superintendents, and said, hey, we really would like for everybody to be a part of this. So they would like our support by committing to the Kern Education Pledge, by attending meetings as a representative of the Kern region, participating in the education pledge work groups, serving as members of the Kern Education Pledge governing committee, and committing district resources to address the Kern Education pledge priorities. And so we're very fortunate to be here with the county. Our county office really supports all of their districts. Of course, at this point, they're really helping us financially. But they come alongside us even in our educational needs. They're helping us with our continuous improvement process. And they're just always there looking for, not to tell us, you need to do it this way, but hey, how can we make this better? How can we help you? So I do feel very fortunate that we are working with them. So the pledge, so it looks like this, only it's on a big, large scale. But the pledge itself says, successful, equitable, and healthy communities foster education and career success and align their institutions and resources to advance that vision. Every student needs and deserves an opportunity to earn a post-secondary certificate, credential, or college degree. The creation of the Kern Education Pledge stems from a shared belief that no single program or institution can single-handedly solve the complex, large-scale education and workforce readiness challenges facing our community. Improving student outcomes at scale requires innovative and sustained collaboration across institutions to achieve significant and lasting change. As a result, the educational leaders in Kern County have created an alliance to begin the work of transforming our educational system from cradle to career. Recognizing that achieving our goals requires innovative and sustained collaboration across institutions, We envision additional community partners joining this pledge going forward. So then it goes through the goals. Our goals, the current pledge signatories will regularly measure their progress in pursuit of the following goals. Increase the percentage of children entering school ready to learn. Increase the percentage of students reading at grade level by end of third grade. Increase the percentage of students demonstrating core math proficiencies by the end of fifth grade. Increase the percentage of students demonstrating reading and math proficiency by the end of eighth grade. Increase the percentage of high school students graduating ready to succeed. Increase the percentage of students enrolling in and completing post-secondary programs and entering the skilled workforce. And then the pledge, we pledge to meet regularly, recognizing our work is a generalization and requires long-term stakeholder commitment. We pledge to work together within an environment of co-learning and collaboration. We believe that we are better together as a collaborative partnership than as individual institutions, and pledge to share best practices, services, and resources. We're committed to innovation and possibility, thinking to achieve greater outcomes for all students. And number 5, we pledge to share student data to set baseline measures and monitor progress towards achieving our goals. So we, the undersigned chief executive officers of our respective institutions, will work together on all activities that comprise the current pledge. And so it was originally established back in April 20th, 2017, and we are going to re-pledge on the 11th day of December 2018. And so this is what it'll look like with all 47 signatures on it. So as soon as we get that new pledge, we'll see if we can't take a picture of it, and we'll share it back at a later board meeting. Thank you. So really what they're saying is, and it's been a goal for the last several years, because research does show that if you're not on grade level by the end of third grade, it causes difficulties. So really what the pledge is saying is, hey, you know what, as Kern County and as our 47 school districts, we're going to work together, and we're going to find some best practices as to, hey, you know what, your third grade percentage is higher than my third grade percentage, so, you know, let's get together and talk about what are you doing that I'm not doing. Or, hey, you know what, my math is a little bit higher than yours, let me share what I'm doing here to help you. So it's really all about working together to, you know, increase outcomes for students.
And then, how are we going to make sure that students are ready to enter school? Because it said that they, when we're entering kindergarten, that they wanted to be school ready. And we all know that.
Well, and you know, that's kind of a difficult question. We do have you know, students in all school districts. You know that Kern County has a lot of high poverty. You know, not all students go to preschool prior to entering school. So, you know, and in the past it was believed that, you know, the governor had said, oh yeah, you know, if you do this in the third year of preschool, we're going to start funding you. Well, unfortunately, we kind of found out part of that really did not happen. Now, our governor-elect, you know, he has, you know, in all these commercials, has said, oh yeah, I'm going to fund preschool, you know, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. So, you know, we'll just kind of have to wait and see, you know, to how that pans out for us. You know, if it, you know, materializes into additional preschool opportunities. You know, but again, it's about all of our school districts working together and saying, hey, you know what? We don't have a preschool program either, but here's kind of what we do to, you know, remedy this situation. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, kind of digging into, you know, working with our other school districts and kind of getting some ideas and coming back and being able to share those.
I have like usual, sorry. Maybe not. So I'm actually a really big fan of cradle to grave methodology. In this case, it's cradle to career. And I think that the pledge is going to be very helpful for our district. But I just have some very specific questions. First one is, how are we going to track our students since the majority of them go to ABC and they're not part of the Kern County Community Colleges district?
I'm sure that there will be a way for all of us to collaborate together, because even if they're, Bakersfield City College, those kinds of things, I'm sure there'll be a common measurement. So whether, it's Saracoso, because Tehachapi, I think they're, use a lot of Saracoso, and we use ABC, there probably will be a common measurement that we can all use.
So maybe an ask of ABC to allow us to have some data from them.
I'm sure in our conversations, we could get that.
Okay. And then, do our teachers, our actual boots on the ground, gain access to all this data, the benchmarks, the best practices, et cetera?
Yes, as we're working together, we certainly will be coming back and sharing that.
Okay. So you're coming back and sharing with a broad workforce,
yes,
as opposed to them having the ability to say check during their prep periods, because this is what they'd actually be doing to prep for their classes, is gathering this information to be helpful for you.
Well, and we haven't started the pledge process. The work groups haven't been sorted out. So it's kind of like, once we get there and once we figure out, okay, how is this going to, I'm not really sure how this is all going to pan out, how this is all going to work, but certainly there will be opportunity to come back and share, and I don't know, but possibly there would be opportunity for administrators or teachers to be involved. I'm not really sure, honestly, how it's going to, the logistics of it currently.
Details are no matter, let's just get the idea.
I think they just may want to establish that, hey, everybody's on board. Everybody wants to be a part of this. I'm sure that they have it all laid out, because they've been working on this for a few years. And I'm sure that once we get the pledge back and everybody's on board, then it's going to be like, okay, comes January, it's going to be, okay, everybody's all in, let's get started.
So it comes down to where the majority of our staff do not have access to the information directly, and it has to be from just a small group or even just yourself. How do you plan on marketing it to our entire district, or at least just being a champion of it to ensure that it's actually?
Well, again, we'll see how the logistics of it work out, but certainly there is a plan in place. As soon as we realize that plan, we will activate people accordingly, and certainly get that out and let everybody know this is how we are going to attack this. And really what works for Panama, one of this that works for Tehachapi may not work for us here. We may have to kind of go, okay, well, we're going to tweak this a little bit so that it works for Southern Kern.
Yeah, especially since our student population is certainly not the same as, say, a Tehachapi student population, and therefore our programs might differ from theirs. Is that what you're?
Sure.
That is like primarily a higher concentration on CTE programs and maybe a smaller focus on college career.
Possibly.
Thank you very much, Leanne. I do, even though I'm trying to grill you here, I do think that this is
No, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
So we need to take the action on this, so we are going to.
Resolution that we adopt the current educational pledge.
I'll second.
All in favor? And absent? The first reading of board policies is Hargus.
All right, so on the agenda we have several board policies that we have gone through, and so they are on the agenda for a first reading. There'll be a second reading November 14th, and then approval in December.
make a motion that we accept this as written.
I have one comment to make on non-personnel. Actually, I just wanted to clarify this. Classified stipend, extra duty, employee resignations, page 5, employee, the double payment for head varsity, head JV coach, head assistant varsity coach, or assistant JV coach, sorry. I know that it's been the practice to allow coaches to coach 2 different head varsity teams. I just want to make sure that we're allowed and able to also provide that opportunity as both the head varsity coach and the junior varsity coach, and then the assistant varsity coach and the assistant junior varsity coach. I don't think that it's inappropriate. I do think that they put them on time. I just want to make sure that that's not a conflict of any sort.
Apparently, it is fine, provided that is a practice, as long as their practices do not coincide. So, for example, for volleyball, varsity would have to practice at one time, JV would have to practice at a completely separate time.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Second by Greg. All in favor? Aye. Business and operations, approved construction agreement to All County Environmental Restoration Incorporated for repair and restore of Roseman High School classrooms 209 and 210 to original condition.
So this contract is the lowest bid, is informal bidding. As a district, we participate in a state program called CUPCA, California Uniform Public Accounting, Cost Accounting. Really long, I can't repeat all of it. But the gist of it is, if a public project is below $175,000, we do not have to go out to bid for it. Since we had 3 vendors show up for our informal bid, all of their bids came below $175,000. So we do not have to go to bid for this. We could award the lowest bid for this. This project will be paid for by our insurance company. The only cost to us is our delivery.
I make a motion to accept it.
One question. I want to make sure that the business history of the vendor does not show any derogatory marks, such as lawsuits, failures to deliver, etc.
Yeah. Once we have the contract approved, then we can go to the vendor and ask them to submit all of their insurance paperwork. We'll check the California State directory for their business information and all that. But basically, we were instructed by our insurance company that this is the only vendor they will pay for since it is the lowest bid. So if we can find something that shows they're not able to complete the job or they're not faithful bidder, we will go to our insurance company and inform them that. One of the other things is that since they will be on the school site, they do have to go through fingerprinting. They have to certify that they fingerprinted after hours, so it won't interfere with school.
Thank you. I'll second. My motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approve resolution 18-1907 adopted for local tax reviews.
So this is something that happens every year. Basically, the county treasurer informs us that there is an X amount of taxpayers that are appealing their tax assessment, their property tax assessment. So what this resolution does is it sets aside money to cover those assessments if they go against us. For this resolution, it's $179,000. That will be taken from our tax revenue that we would expect in April and June. So it's not money that we already have, it's money that's promised to us in the future, but it'll be abated to make up for the 179. So they'll hold on to it until there's an assessment or there's a judgment. So if the judgment goes against us, that money will go back to the taxpayer. If the judgment goes against the taxpayer, we will get that money back. And these trials, these could last for years. And it's every year, it depends on how much in terms of property tax holders appeal. So this year's $179,000. Next year it could be money that we could be getting back from the county. So it's something that we really can't judge. It's just when we get the letter from the treasurer, we have to take action. Otherwise, if the judgment goes against us, we will have to pay that money out of our judgment.
As they said, county staff can kind of put a pause on it, but I know that we're all hoping that we could make this happen for you and for all of our kids. So thank you very much.
Is there any indication when it might come back to the board to vote?
December 5th is what Ms. Hargus said, probably. Thank you.
I hear a motion to adjourn. Second by Gutierrez. All in favor? Aye.